Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. This is the Man vs. Mood podcast, episode 4. I am your host, Will, joined, as always, by my good friend, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning. You got to wake up, Mike. Come on, I'm bringing the heat, brother. You got to bring the heat. How are we doing today?
I haven't had my coffee yet.
Coffee yet? My goodness, it's 4:01, almost 4:02 in the afternoon.
I know. Still haven't had it.
Oh, my. I don't know how you can live, because I've been up since 2:30 this morning, and I've had multiple cups of coffee, but... Anyway, with that being said, today's podcast is going to be on mental health and business, something that Mike and I are pretty well familiar with because we are older than 20 years old, and we've been in business in that world for 20-plus years, at least I have. How long have you been in it?
Easily 20 years.
Easily?
Yeah.
How long have you been in real estate, though? We'll just cover that real quick.
So as a lender and a realtor? Or
Yeah.
Total?
No. Both.
Total combined, I would say 11 years.
11 years.
Combined.
Very nice. Well, I spent 20-some years in the real estate business all together with mortgage, and I think probably 22 years. I got my license when I was 21. So anyway, that being said, we like to start the top of the show off. We're going to change a little bit from something that good happened to us to something that we're grateful for. And that's just because, as we talked about in the last episode, that we want to count our blessings and what we are grateful for. So, Mike, you want to lead us off?
Yeah. So I actually moved all my personal belongings out of my house that I was living in with my ex-wife, which was an interesting. I mean,
yeah, I was there.
Thank you for helping, and that's actually what I'm grateful for. Is for friends that I can count on when other ones are busy or just don't have the time. So it was great having you, and having that one hand, you were actually were lifting stuff that was like. You had 3 hands, so
yeah, I don't know about 3 hands,
but I really am appreciative of your help and for helping me get out of there. And also, my mental with my ex-father-in-law was hovering pretty heavily.
Hovering was that's I think being a little bit on the light side.
Yeah, so it definitely affected my mood, and I know you could tell, and my kids could tell, the ones that were helping us, but. Yeah, so I'm grateful for your help.
Derek and I went and helped Mike do that, and we actually got lucky because I lost the water pump on my truck we came to find on Monday. So Monday afternoon.
It's probably because you helped me move.
Well, no, I heard it when we actually, one of the times we stopped and I got something to drink or something, and I heard I was like, and then water started going everywhere on Monday. So anyway, something I'm grateful for, we had kind of my oldest son, very excited for him. He got a new job this week, a new apprenticeship.
Oh, he got the job?
Yes, he did get the job. So
that's awesome.
He is very excited about that, and I'm grateful that he's got the next step in his kind of progression, career, all of that. And this could be the one that is, honestly, for the foreseeable future. So that's
a game changer. What's he doing? Diesel mechanic?
Yeah, he's a diesel mechanic. He's been he started in high school at the Skill Center at Cascadia Tech, and then he worked for Les Schwab, which if y'all want to work out, go work at Les Schwab because they hustle. And then he worked for a diesel company the last couple of years in an apprenticeship program, got all kinds of certifications and things like that. But this opportunity came up. It's with a government agency and pension, the whole works. I mean, it's a really good deal. He's going to have to learn to the schedule's going to be a little bit different because he's going to be starting on swing. And so, that kind of stuff, and having to bid and whatnot for vacations and things like that. But the upside is substantially better for him. So I wish we got to start recording these things because the face and what Mike just did to try to avoid blowing into the microphone was hilarious.
Don't drink soda or anything bubbly when you are trying to do a podcast.
Yeah,
just FYI.
I am right there with you. I usually try to drink water. Occasionally, I'll have one of my I like the sparkly water things, but they do give you the gas sometimes. So something I wanted to add, and I'm actually going to, I think it might have been on there, but head check. How are we doing? How are you feeling? How's this week been for you?
I was a little messed up after Saturday, but actually I bounced back pretty fast, with a lot of the things that I have in place right now with people to talk to and my support system. I'm having a great week.
That's something that I think we've talked about before, but I mean, it's so important for us to remember that our support system, supporting cast, whatever you want to call it, is so vital for us to move forward, because when we are in that funk or we need to have a little bit of a chat with somebody about whatever, they're there for you, and there's no questions. There's no why. There's no, you're not looking for a liability. You're looking just to get some words out, that kind of thing. So
how about yourself?
I had a pretty good week. Yesterday was, I woke up, and that's my thing is I'll get into my head sometimes as soon as I wake up, 4:30 in the morning. And yesterday it was my mom, and that just happens to me. It's not something that I can try to force out of my head, nor do I want to try to force it out of my head, but I just missed her. And so that was kind of a little bit of a funky type thing, but it's also an appreciation. And what I try to do is create an opportunity for myself to think back on the good things. It's not, she's out of pain, no things like that. And, it's been over a year. So it's just kind of I think a normal part of the process. You think about somebody and it's sad, but it's sad for me. It's kind of a selfish thing, frankly, when we're sad that somebody has passed away, especially in, with medical conditions and things like that. Now, if somebody, got in a car wreck or something, that's a lot different. But so other than that, it's been a good week. Gonna try to get the water pump fixed and get a couple new vehicles because it's about time to upgrade. I don't have anything, my car's got under 100,000 miles on it, but I've never had a new car in my entire life, and I don't think I'm going to start now with everything that's going on, but definitely need to get something with lower miles and to haul the Animalia around. But as always, like I said, get into the gym, and that is an important part of my routine. And the gym that I like to go to is All Pride Fitness. And today the show is sponsored by All Pride Fitness in Washougal. I'm going to give you a little bit of we like to use our own experiences to kind of paint that picture. And Abe.
Yeah.
Abe,
he's the owner.
The owner of All Pride. And Abe is in there every morning. He's leading classes. He's got 5 days a week minimum. He's got classes in the morning. I don't know what his schedule looks like in the afternoon, but it's a great little gym in the Washougal area, Camas, Washougal. If you're looking, head on over to.
And his prices are pretty good.
His prices are actually very good. There's a couple of different gyms in town. Jess Moore with Champ Camp. Love Jess. Actually belong there as well, and you may see him in the mix here at some time as well. But the fact that we have small businesses that have made it through the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff is a testament to us as consumers, but to those guys, figuring out ways that they can coexist with the mandates and things like that are being sent down from on high. So, just props to all those guys. But
I remember he was shut down for a while because of what
he was shut down,
and then was doing.
He, I actually had him on Kinetic Chaos. We talked about how he dealt with all of that and the mask mandates and whatnot. So, anyway, highly recommend anyone that is looking to engage in their mental health. You've got to engage with your physical health as well. That they go hand in hand. So head on over to allpridefitness.com, enter promo code MVM, as in ManVsMood, and you'll get $1 joining fee. And I'm going to go to his website and take a look at it here real quick. He actually
I thought you were prepared for today, dude.
I am, but I had it on my other computer. And I didn't put it on this. So, anyway, head on over to All Pride Fitness. I believe it's $25 or $35 a month. I can't remember. Don't quote me that off the top of my head. But allpridefitness.com, promo code MVM, and Abe will get you all set up. So, business.
He is sorry, kind of go back a little bit about Abe. He is a good dude, but he's a 49er fan.
Oh.
I can't do that.
I know, and he actually went down to the game, and one of the 2 games that the Seahawks have won this year was at San Francisco, and I think his wife is actually
She's a
Hawks fan.
Yeah.
So he had a picture on Instagram of himself and his wife, and the house divided type thing, which is always kind of funny to me. But poor guy's not. I don't know. The way the Hawks are playing, but the NFC West is so difficult that I think there's only 2 choices of what's going to come out of this division, and they're both down south. So
and as much of a diehard Hawks fan that I am, I'm kind of hoping they do have a bad season because I'm on the wait list for tickets.
Oh, are you really? Hold on just a second. Well, 49er fan notwithstanding, Abe is a great guy, runs a nice little gym. It's not, overly busy, but I'm there early in the morning. I do know that when I go there in the afternoon, or when I drive by there in the afternoon and things like that, he's got a good clientele, but there's all kinds of things to do. And again, the 49ers notwithstanding, it's a good little place to hang out. Businesses, mental health. Mental health and business, in my opinion, go hand in hand, because a lot of the things that we encounter in our personal lives come from our business life.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be, some kind of white collar thing. You could be digging ditches, you could be running equipment, you could be laying concrete, or you could be, doing mergers and acquisitions for Citigroup. All of them, at some point in time, our mental health plays into how well we can do those things. And I don't think it's something, we talk about men and our ability to open up. I think that's one of the biggest places that our mental health struggles manifest themselves, and we shove them to the side even more because there's money involved, and a lot of times we're putting money much higher than our own needs even. You and I both played in the real estate business and the mortgage business, and we see how that has affected our moods. I mean, if a deal goes south or something like that, is there something that, in the last, let's say 10 years or 11 years that you were in the businesses, that as it impacted your mental health was kind of a make or break it for you, or would cause you a lot of stress or anything like that?
Stress, yes.
Well, the cause,
absolutely stress.
Yes,
especially
I
when you
with
have
that.
people's homes riding on you and how you're doing. So if I'm not in it mentally and checked out, it can affect a deal. So you really have to be on your A game all the time. So having that pressure consistently is tough to deal with, because as real estate agents, as you know, we're really not off.
No.
Our phone is constantly ringing. I'm sitting here and my phone's gone off 6 times already. I don't know if it's client or realtor, but it still has a ton of pressure every day. And you have it from your managing brokers saying, hey, your file needs these things. You have it from both sides, the buyer, the seller, the listing agent, and the buyer's agent, depending on what side you're on. And then you have the lender and just everything.
Yeah.
You're in control of all of that. And then our job, my job is to buffer all that stress from the client.
Exactly.
So
and that's
it's
one
a lot
thing.
to hold.
It's a tremendous amount to hold, and I know we're kind of honing in on the specialties that you and I have, and we'll branch out into some other stuff, but that is something that if you're a good agent, and again, this is my opinion, but the client doesn't know that the stress is occurring, because we're not limiting information by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of times in these types of businesses, they're filled with type A personalities, which they want answers. They think that if they are loud or aggressive.
So much entitlement.
Exactly. And they deserve that because they sold 2 houses last week. Well, real estate is like the spin of a roulette wheel. It's maybe it's a little more likely, but each individual deal is one of its own and not like another. And that's what I always appreciated about it, was that it's always different. But those agents can cause so much stress that, depending on the client that you're working with, it can cause them a tremendous amount of stress as well. And it's our job to internalize that. But when we internalize that, that can then cause us to have some kind of other issue. I don't want to say meltdown, because that's, you're kind of bulletproofed at some point, don't you think?
Well, from my experience, when I get so stressed out, I would go eat food.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to hit up Dairy Queen and grab a Blizzard, and not that would make me feel better. It was that initial dopamine hit of that that would make me feel better, and then I would feel like shit afterwards.
Or you have you go out for dinner and you do the same type thing because you equate or you'll give yourself an excuse like, hey, I sold the house, so I'm going to have that Blizzard.
I deserve it.
Exactly. And as you'll hear me, and if you've known me for a while, moderation is the key. Having lost as much weight and done that yo-yo bullshit as much as I've done, the number one constant is moderation. That if you're going to succeed in anything in that manner, you can't strip everything out of your diet, but you also can't have exactly that. The binge thing is key. When we look at other fields, if you will, humans are the one thing that is common amongst all of us. We're dealing with other humans, and so we don't know what that other person is going through, or that other agent could be mad, or the boss, whatever it might be. So when we're communicating with them, it's important to have some empathy. And empathy is something that I've written about on ManVsMood, and you and I have talked about how important that is in connecting with another person. Now, we can speak to our experience in real estate that if we just listen to that new or that agent that we're working with, and the reason I said new is because oftentimes, especially as long as I had been in the business, I worked with a lot of new agents on the other side of the deal. And
right now it's crazy.
Oh, I'm sure, because everyone and their uncle is getting their real estate license. The barrier to entry into the real estate field is just a little too low, in my opinion. But the one thing I found a lot was that they wanted to try to impress me with their words and their knowledge. And because the other agents that they worked with, evidently they felt like that was going to get them on their level. I would stop them at, you don't need to impress me. Just be honest with me, and we're going to get through this. If you have questions, I'm not here to screw you. We're both here for the same thing, and that is to see our clients' needs met.
Well, I think so many times we look at them as opposition.
Yeah, and that's
instead of working with us in the deal, because we're both after the same goal is to satisfy our clients and have that transaction close. So there should never be the opposition or the pushback. Why do you think
that there is that adversarial relationship so often in a real estate transaction? And this equates to anything. It doesn't matter if this is sales in general, I guess, that we're kind of talking about.
I don't know. Ego. A lot of times could be the ego. I get along with pretty much everybody I've worked with on both sides of the transaction. I kind of pride myself on I've actually got my clients accepted contracts because of my relationships with others and how, I don't approach it that way. I'm like, hey, look, what can we do to get this done? But I've had some agents that are very, especially ones from Portland, for whatever reason, they come across the river and they're very like, my client wants this and this and this, and if it's not done, we're gonna walk. And at that time, I'm like, okay, walk. Yeah. And I'll talk to my client about it. I had a seller. I did that for Cascade Park and said, hey, this is what the agent's requesting. This is how his tone is. He's not very flexible on anything. I really don't think it's the buyer. I think it's the buyer's agent. And it ended up being that way because when we put dug our heels in the sand on that transaction, they bent a lot. So,
and a lot of times that's projection. Right. And we've talked about that before. It is ego, and they think that if they just bull rush you with their bullshit, that you're going to capitulate and do what they say. But so many times there is that disconnect between what the client knows and what the agent is saying.
I can guarantee you his client didn't know a lot of the stuff he was saying.
And I'm sure that if the client did know that they would maybe have fired him. But that's kind of gets into the tactics of being a real. Were you on the listing side?
Listing side.
So in this type of marketplace, and again, this goes across any sales, when you are in the powerful position, which is what you were, because you have a listing, and I'm sure there were other people interested, why would somebody come at you with those demands? And even if you were under contract already, you may have several other backups that are ready to go. When we talk about that and think about how we can all get to the end point, which is a sale, no matter what it is that we're selling. That creates an opportunity to have that connection with the other person on the other side of the deal, because life is a constant negotiation every day, every minute, every hour.
I'll tell you what, he wrote another offer on another house I had listed, and I told my client, I'm like, this is how this guy was on this deal. He could be a nightmare, and they weren't even the highest offer, but because of my knowledge of him and how hard he is to be to work with, that would not have been an easy transaction for him. So they end up choosing another offer, not because of that sole reason, but that played into it.
Was he young or old?
I never saw him.
Oh, okay.
But just his personality.
And sales in general leads to usually somebody that has a mentality that they know they're good enough at talking or whatever it might be that they can succeed in it. But to be actually very, very successful in any sales field, real estate, cosmetics, whatever it might be, you have to have a number of factors playing in your favor. And some of these we don't like to talk about too much, and that is your looks. Play into that. I don't care what anyone says. You are going to be judged on how you look, how you speak, and again, we'll get into this.
Language, everything.
Yeah, all of it plays into it. And when you let the ego kind of overtake those things, I guess reasonable thought process of I just want to get this done, then that throws you as the other side of that into, it can be confusion, it could be a lot of different things. And then we kind of take that and we pack it away, and you'll remember that about that guy. Or
I still remember how I felt after that. I felt like, God, what did I do wrong? Why is he attacking me for his client? Like, and it made no sense. And so then I looked internally like, well, what's wrong with me? That's the direction I went. And not everybody's going to go that route, but it does trigger you to start that cycle of negative thinking,
negative self-talk, and
which spirals or can spiral.
Bigger than life. And that's something that, when you're younger, you kind of blow through everything and you'll just deal with it. But as we kind of start to engage in our mental health and how we're doing and whatnot, and realize that these negative, this kind of negative feedback that we're giving ourselves 20 years ago, we still said it. We just it didn't weigh on us as much because maybe we didn't have as much stress. But the core being, and what the point I was trying to make a little while ago was that if we allow the ego to completely control our business and how we complete that business, it can either take us to heights that are unbelievable because you're just basically a psychopath. And I don't mean psychopath kind of in the social vernacular. I'm talking about like psychopathic traits, which are, cold, indifferent, things like that. And those are
no heart, basically.
No heart. And
it's hard to have empathy when you have no heart.
And that's the balance that I kind of wanted to talk about and strike, is having empathy, and I want to introduce everyone into kind of what's called Machiavellianism, and which is that side. And you'll see a lot of people that are very, very successful, they'll employ that, but what they're doing is they're compartmentalizing. And I have found a Twitter account quite a while ago, last year, called Corporate Mock. It's just CORPORATEMACH, and I'll have it in the show notes. But he teaches that and how you can use that, but then you also have to be a human and understand that when you're dealing with another person, there's going to be so many emotions. And sales, in general, any type of exchanging money, again, that tie to the tangible can create almost, I don't know, I'm trying to find the word. It creates this opportunity for a lot of way more emotion than needs to be present.
Well, no, I get what you're kind of saying. So, say this guy maybe hasn't sold a house or sold a car, or sold something for quite a while, and he has bills coming up that he's stressing out about. So if this doesn't go through, and his emotions are already super high, and as soon as that deal either fails or goes through, he's going to have one direction or the other on his mental. Like, am I going to be able to pay my bills or am I not? So that I can see why that would come up. And I try to put myself in that position of, you know, maybe this guy has something going on, but it's hard not to take that home if you're getting yelled at, and then you go take it home to your, you know, spouse or girlfriend or your kids or whatever, to not let that. Police officers are a huge one.
Yeah, we talked about that last show, and how, and all of it is compartmentalization.
Yep.
If you run a backhoe and you hit a gas line, let's say, you know, somebody didn't, you know, they didn't locate it correctly, and you hit a gas line, and all kinds of problems are created because of that. Maybe it wasn't even your fault, but if you're getting yelled at by the boss, or people are telling you how stupid you are, it's important to make sure that you don't take that to heart. That if it was an honest to goodness mistake, that, hey, sometimes shit happens and you have to deal with it. Or if it legitimately was your fault, it's an opportunity to get better. But one or another, I think something that you and I have really tried to focus on is moving past it quickly, learn from it, and move past it.
Everything's a learning experience. And that's why I tell a lot of new agents that I even train. And from other past jobs that I've had where I've trained people, is like, I would rather you fail than succeed at every single little thing you do.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you don't, you're going to not get very far in your career. I'd rather you fail forward than the only time you're going to really truly fail is when you just stop.
Yeah.
That's failure.
And that's something that, you know, we have all these platitudes and things that come across our timeline and, you know, tell us, you know, don't quit or whatever, or, you know, you're happy. You guys know what they have it at Home Goods. You can put the stuff all over your walls. But that is truly in any job or life. And that's why I have such an issue with suicide, is when you're the one that quits, then that's the last hope you have of succeeding. Until that, what is he doing? Until you have exhausted everything possible, you still have a chance. And, you know, we always want to kind of have that positive thought process, because there will be times when you'll lose I lost probably, well, no, not probably. The worst deal I ever lost in real estate cost me a $45,000 commission. Wasn't my fault. I was young. I was in my mid-20s, big multi-million-dollar deal. And I'm glad that it happened at that point, because even though it was not my fault, I still learned something from it, which was, A, don't trust what the other people say. You got to go do your due diligence. And I trusted the other agent. I actually worked in the same office. And so I learned that from it. But the biggest thing was that was a big number. When you're 25 years old and you see a check that big,
that's a big number even when you're not 25.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Barely make that a year.
Exactly. But to lose that, the biggest thing that it taught me was you don't ever spend a dime until in your mind or any other way.
Biggest cliche, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, and that's every new agent that I ever mentored was, oh, I'm going to make, you know, X thousands of dollars, and then I start to kind of break it down like, okay, we still have to get through this part, this part, this part, and this part. We got the contract signed, that's wonderful, but we still need to get it there, and they're already, you know, buying a new sweater and kind of, you know, giving themselves a treat before it's deserved. When what's your biggest blow up? Can you remember what or not blow up, but the biggest loss and maybe what you learned from that?
I lost one that was like it was a $26,000 commission. I had both sides of it.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of the things I was just thinking of is like our deals rely on so many other people to go through.
Yeah.
You know,
you're kind of hurting
the buyer,
cats.
the seller, the buyer's agent, the title person, the lender. Like, you add everybody up, there's probably 5 to 10 people per transaction that you have to rely on that you're going to get paid. So it's tough to try to control your thoughts around that, especially if you lose something, because then you want to get mad at somebody else.
Yeah.
So then what happens with that? What do you do with that?
And how do you make sure that it doesn't happen
Again,
the next deal?
I've gone
Because
through a lot of lenders, because this one happened to be a lender failure, and it killed the deal for both parties. And then I'm the one that looks bad because I referred the lender to the buyer, and then I had the seller as one of my clients, and so I lost both clients and the entire deal.
see, and that's one
And
of
I
the
didn't care about the money; it was more about the relationships. To
yeah.
me.
Because the one thing that we kind of forget is we live in the now, but when you're in business, you're setting up relationships for the future. If you work at Safeway, maybe you're doing it so that you can go to college, but you still need to have that job in order to go succeed at whatever your other endeavors are. If you're laying pipe, well, maybe you want to be a foreman someday. Maybe you want to, go in and be an operator from there, but you got to show them that you're good at that. And so we always have that opportunity to not let our emotions overwhelm us, because it's really easy to blow up at somebody. Like you said, I know I've had agents that freak out. And
I have one right now that's freaking out.
And
she can't even control it. But I'm like, I don't want to use her name.
No, don't.
Let's call her Molly.
Okay.
Just Molly, you can't control what's going to happen on this other deal or on this other side of a house that's has to be sold over in Oregon. You have no control over that. You have to trust that the agent's going to do their job, and she is losing her mind. Like, she's not sleeping, she's not eating, she's just like, man, really? Your life does not depend on that commission.
No. And it's not when things are out of your control, the only person that's stressing about it is you.
Yeah.
You're inventing a reason to be upset about it. And that's, I wanted to get into kind of the big 5 personality traits that just of humans. And one of those is neuroticism. And that's the ability to control how well you can handle those exact types of situations. When you know something is out of your control, how well do you process that and understand that the outcome of that, although it does impact you, you have no bearing on it. And compartmentalization is part of that. And the one thing that I have over compartmentalized in my life to the point where I almost have lost emotion to a degree. And I don't want that, especially for a stint I worked in the business side of the oncology world. And I think I've talked about it on this show. I connected with patients, and I had to make sure that I didn't over-connect with them. I gave them that cheers feeling that I was going for, but when they were ultimately going to move along in their journey and pass away, I couldn't be held down by that. And so that gave me that opportunity to learn from that. But I think a lot of us have so much stress, and you and I have talked about this before, with a fire hose of information and a fire hose of emotions through social media. And so, one of the questions I had also for us is the role that social media is playing, and do you think that is changing how you're interacting with other people, other agents, whatever it might be in life, that maybe they aren't as agreeable, or maybe they are not as just happy, especially the last 2 years? I mean, as we moved through an election, a pandemic, lockdowns, all of that kind of thing. Is it something that you think you see an impact from that
with the social media?
Yeah,
absolutely. I think so many people are more divided now than we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
I know my best friend and his son, and what social media has played in that, where some of his friends have killed themselves.
Really?
So I think it's hitting a lot of young people a lot more, but I also think it's hitting people our age as well, because there's everything that's being spun out there on social media is there's no hope. Everything's the world is
going to hell in a
dying.
handbasket.
We're in end times, blah blah blah, and it's just you're bombarded with that constantly, whether it's on news, whether it's social media, and then it gets into everybody. So like in the office, now there's conversations about talking about this in the office, And it just, if it's constant like that, it's just like, man, well, I can see why people get depressed
and have anxiety.
It affected me. Like, I had to turn off social media. I had to turn off the news and just be like, if I don't hear it and don't see it, and I just go live my life and go hiking or go fishing or, just go for a walk or whatever, that helps my mental clarity a lot more than, just sitting.
Doom scrolling.
Right.
I think another thing that we see with the social media now is people are using it for their business, and they're growing businesses. You see the side hustle, and to a degree, you're almost starting to see social media turn into more of a sales funnel than social media. And so there's going to be a dynamic where, again, how you look and how you speak is going to separate you from other people. I've worked with brokers and things like that about their social media, kind of footprint. And if you want to become a quote unquote influencer, the amount of time and effort that you have to put into creating content and all of that. And if you don't look like a very attractive male or female, you're not going to catch engagement. And there's nothing, unless you want to pay for it, I'm talking organically, that is something that is harder to do. Mm-hmm. And what I also am seeing is that these people that are gathering, as a real estate broker, let's say 25,000 followers on Instagram, which is, so long as you're not purchasing your followers, which is something that's relatively easy to do, but their algorithms know that they're dead accounts, and if they don't have activity and there's not engagement, you're not going to be seen anyway. But what it does is it creates another reason for those people to think that they're better than you. And they're showing off their fancy cars and things like that. And then if that's the type of client that is attracted to that, which the higher the value of whatever you're selling goes, that, I mean, honestly, there's a reason that realtors there's a cliche that they all drive around in Cadillacs and stuff, because, that's kind of, you gotta have that flash to show off, which I've never understood why you want that. I mean, not that you need to go in some hoopty or something, but having a Ferrari, or maybe not a Ferrari, but a Mercedes, I mean, I understand the dynamic behind it, but it never has made a lot of sense to me, especially for like a financial advisor. I don't want my financial advisor driving a $200,000 car.
He's not paying him too much.
Exactly. But these things are all continuing to enter into our mix as business folks, people that work in general, and we've got to be mindful of making sure that we don't put them on a pedestal, because like any other influencer or any other person that you see has a high follower account, you've seen a change in the way the thought process is. People are having value attached to them based on the number of people that follow them. You know that you do it. Even if you do it subconsciously, you say, oh, they've got 200,000 followers. They must have something good to say.
Yeah. Then you watch it and like, why do they have 100,000 followers?
Exactly. But still subconsciously, we assign them a value. And it's important to keep those values in mind so that we're not allowing them to have any type of agency over us at all. And that's something that we haven't gone into kind of agency yet. I'm not talking about real estate agency. I'm just talking about our own agency and controlling, again, what we can and things like that. Which brings us into what I was talking about earlier, the big 5 personality traits. First one being extroversion. Guys like you and I. Now,
I'd say I'm kind of a mixture of both. Word I'm looking at, it says outgoing / energetic versus solitary and reserved. There's times for both. Like when I'm customer facing, I'm very outgoing and energetic. Or even around like in a party or whatever, I don't tend to be reserved. But like at home, when I get home, I like to be solitary and just be kind of veg out and just download from the day.
Exactly. And that's something that I think a lot of people think that I'm Captain Extrovert and I'm always talking, and because I do this, or just if you've known me for more than 10 years or something, you know that I can be the life of the party if I want to be, or I can just be kicking it on the side and have nothing to do with anything, maybe just having a conversation with somebody. But extroversion in business can, especially in what we were talking about, it can equate to much better, sales if you're in, again, if you're laying pipe or you're a plumber or something like that. It can also help you with that connection with your boss, with a customer, with the vice president that flew in that day. And so you got to understand, if you aren't an extrovert, that might be something that you can work on. From there, agreeableness, how well do you connect with somebody and want to find a common ground, or do you want to be right all the time? And you were talking about somebody that was probably pretty low on agreeableness when he's calling you and telling you what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. No, that's not how this works. We're going to negotiate this. Is it something that, as you have...
I think you can approach that in anything, whether it's business, whether
mm-hmm.
it's just personal relationships. The more friendly and the more you try to connect on any level, finding something that is in common. I try to do that with everybody I meet that I have a conversation with, whether it's like, hey, nice shoes, or, I see you're wearing a Blazers hat, or you drive a F-150 like I do. I try to find something that I can connect on, that I can talk about, because then it's going to bring their walls down and it's going to build that relationship.
And that goes back to the old Dale Carnegie book, mm-hmm. How to win friends and influence people. When it's not about you, when you're trying to make that initial connection, and you, especially in a sales type of environment, if you're meeting somebody for the first time or whatever it might be, that is an opportunity for them to, like it perfectly stated, drop their walls. And when you're in sales or in business, that's how you are going to get to your ultimate goal, which is the sale.
Have you ever heard of reverse selling?
I have. Off the top of my head, I don't. I think actually, didn't we do some stuff on that at Realty One?
I don't remember.
But go ahead and tell us about it.
But I was watching this one guy. His name's Brandon Morin, and he's a realtor out in Michigan, mm-hmm. and he does a ton of business. And so he does a lot of for sale by owners. And okay. For sale by owners they don't want to pay a commission.
Nope.
And
There's
so
a reason
how
for sale by owner.
How do you get them to potentially be a client in either the buying side or the selling side? You approach it as, how can I help you sell your house, knowing that you don't want to pay a commission? So you help them. You provide value and build that trust, and then still let them stumble and trip and fall and do those things, because then once they're tired of doing that, they're going to come back to you and be like, hey, you're not like any other realtor that I've dealt with. You weren't attacking me. You weren't telling me how stupid I was for not listing with you. You weren't telling me that you can make me more money and all that stuff. You were the only one that said, hey, this is what I do to sell houses, and you provided that to me. I trust you. I'm tired of doing it on my own. Will you please list?
And I just remembered why I remembered that. You actually brought that up to me, I think, at one of our coffees, and we talked about him.
But it's the same principle.
Exactly. You're adding value. What is it that I can bring to the table that will separate me from everyone that's talking down to you? And using that as a perfect example of the ego controlling the sales agent rather than how can I help you? It's you're doing this all wrong and I'm the quote-unquote professional, which, let's be honest. Unless you go get a degree in real estate or you've been in the business for a long time, I would say it's kind of like driving. You're not an experienced real estate agent until you've been in the business for probably 5 years.
Oh, I would say yes, easily. This market's tough because people are selling houses left and right with very little effort.
Yeah, and it feels easy to them, and that's
why so many people join in, going, "Oh, it's easy money."
And that's, you and I have talked about it. One of the biggest things that I always talked about with new agents is, this first year, maybe even 2, you're going to burn through your sphere of influence. You have to set yourself up for the future by having good, positive interactions, transactions, all kinds of actions with these clients so that you become a legacy broker, so that you are the one that their entire family comes to. these are the types of things that are going to separate you from the riffraff that want to work 20 hours a week. I mean, that was always my favorite. I'd like to be a real estate broker and do it about 20 hours a week. Well, that's about 1/5 of, if you're going to be a deep real estate broker selling multiple houses per month, you're going to be doing a heck of a lot more than that. Now, with the digital age things and COVID and the restrictions that were placed upon that, it has, changed to a degree. But by and large, I mean, you've got to be on top of it.
Oh, absolutely.
So next one, we talk about one of the issues that I have struggled with mightily, and that is comfort with conflict. And that goes along with the neuroticism and agreeableness. But having a level of comfort with conflict, but knowing that you're not taking it personally. It's just business is a cliche that we've heard forever. But it's not that. I think sometimes when we think of conflict, we think of anger, and it's not about anger. It's about negotiating what it is we're all looking for in the end. And that's the same thing if your superintendent comes down to the job site and you're leaning against the shovel, you're going to have probably
maybe not have an external conflict, but you might have some internal conflict of, I better be doing something or else I'm going to get in trouble.
Exactly. And that could go down a whole nother, kind of path, if you will. But it's understanding that, and this is something that, I'm trying to be vulnerable when I talk about this stuff, that I assign people too much agency over me. And I assign a value to them that is higher than me. And I don't want to let them down by having to give them bad news and I don't know. The crazy thing is that I do it subconsciously. So some people I may meet in 10 minutes, I will have an issue. Not that I won't do it or I can't do it. It's just that it's hard for me. Other people, I've known them for 20 years, no issue whatsoever. And it's not an anger thing or anything like that. Sometimes it could be, don't get me wrong, but it's about me getting over that and having the self-esteem to know that I'm worthy. And these are things that, you get imposter syndrome, right? We haven't really talked about imposter syndrome yet, but imposter syndrome is not believing that you deserve what you have earned or the place that you're at. And have you ever felt that before? Because here's a perfect example of why you okay.
Let me answer that. Yes, I have.
I saw come across your Instagram, which is Mikey B, the real one. Have it on ManVsMood.com and all the after show posts. But it said that you were in the top 15% of real estate brokers in the nation for, I think, Q3. Is that or Q2?
Yeah.
Okay. So
first half of the year.
First half of the year. Now somebody could sit there and say, "Well, why did I do that? Oh, I got lucky." That's one that you hear a lot. It was just the right time. You dismiss your accomplishments. Not, I busted my ass. I sold 10 houses, whatever it was, and I did this well, that, and I can learn from this. But it's that, again, negative self-talk where we say, "Well, I didn't really do it. I tripped into it," or whatever it might be. So let's hear about your imposter syndrome, or if you care to get into it.
Well, I can talk about that since you just brought it up. And I put my accomplishment on other people. So, for example, in the post, I thanked all of my clients for trusting in me to be able to get their home sold or home bought. And, I didn't really take on the onus of that it was my accomplishment. It was more, hey, I'm just doing my job. Where, I've showed up before at an award ceremony. We just had one for not too long ago. And, I'm seeing other people that have higher sales numbers, and I'm just like beating myself down going, why am I not up there? Instead of being like, hey, I sold 30 houses last year and made X amount of money, because that's how they base the rewards off of, is either units sold or gross income.
Okay.
So, I think it was like 185,000 in gross income. And I'm seeing as other agents that have sold 50, 60,
Yep.
70 houses, or they've made 250 plus $1,000, and then I'm just like, man, I'm such a loser. Why can't I fucking get up there and do that? What is holding me back? And that, you know, it was funny because I was with my girlfriend at that, and she's like, man, when you were sitting there at the table, I could just see like your whole demeanor just change. It's like you just checked out.
Really?
Yeah, and I kind of did, because I was just, you know, I'm being vulnerable to you guys, but it sucked because I was like, I want to be up there, but I don't know if I have what it takes to get there.
And that's that little kind of paradigm shift within your own mind where you say, I didn't get there, but this is the path I'm going to take.
Well, you can take you can take two paths.
3, 4 probably if you wanted to.
For me, it's 2. You can either choose to do it or you can choose not to do it, and be okay. And you have to be okay with both.
Yep.
So,
because there's gives and takes, really there's pros and cons, right?
Right. It's really a gut check. You know, do I want the social life or non-social life of someone that's selling 70 homes? That's a ton of work.
That's a huge amount of time.
Especially if you're by yourself. If you don't have a team backing you up, that's a ton of work. But, or do you? I mean, is money the end-all, be-all? Or is time with your family, happiness, travel, doing things for other people? You know, I love the West Columbia Gorge Humane Society. I'll go fill dog food bags for the dogs. Or I've done other trips like to California during the fires and things like that. So I would rather do those, helping other people out.
Work-life balance.
Right. And is there such a thing, though?
No, I think that we trick ourselves into believing it, but
I don't think there is.
I think that it depends on the line of work that you're in. If you're a trauma surgeon, you obviously are going to, interact like that at home. But when you're in the type of world that we have operated in, it is inevitable that Friday night at 9:30 and you've had 4 cocktails and you're sitting down eating popcorn with the family, you're going to get a text message or a phone call or something like that. And so that goes to setting boundaries for yourself. Okay, I don't offer myself 24 hours a day to clients. I offer them from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., whatever it might be.
And I think a lot of new people in new careers, they're so focused on trying to impress their boss, impress their supervisor, impress their friends, impress themselves, that their expectations are so high that they are willing to do whatever it takes, and that means burning themselves out.
And that's, and there will be differences of opinion on, especially now in 2021 when we have had such a focus on mental health, whether that is the right thing or not. Because if you're in investment banking, that's the de facto norm, is you work 100 hours a week. But if you're, like my son, he's an apprentice and he's trying to move up the ranks. Well, he is actually restricted. He can only work 40 hours a week, and he has to have all the overtime approved and go through the bureaucratic bullshit to do that kind of thing. So we have, different factors that play into that. But in the sales world that you and I have operated in, it's really tough to blur those lines. And I will say that for me, until probably the last 5 years of my career, I didn't set boundaries for myself. And that's something that, as we talk about mental health and life, we've got to set all of those things up for ourselves and know where our weaknesses are. If boundaries are a weakness, or me, that was my another issue, is that I was a people pleaser. I would just do anything to make that. And again, it didn't have anything to do with the money. I had no idea what I was going to make. I knew I was going to make money, but I wanted to make sure that they were happy and that their needs were met above mine. So if that meant that I had to ditch my family at dinner, so be it. And then I got to that point where I said, no, okay, I'm 40 years old. I have the ability to say, no, I'm taking Friday night off.
How long did it take you to get there?
Well, probably 15 years. It took a long time.
I was a little bit quicker. It took me 4. And I got to the point where I'm like, I put my hours on my voicemail. Just said, hey, I'm available from such and such time, and I can return your calls at this time and this time. So I set the expectation and set that boundary, so they know that I'm either busy or I'm with a client or I'm off.
Yeah.
and not to unless they text me, and then if they text me, I put it in there too. If they text me, then I know it's something that needs a little bit more urgent.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that also, because you stated it perfectly, setting that boundary up initially, but also, when you're marketing and things like that, if you need to have a day off or anything like that, make sure that you're being proactive about how you're scheduling that. If you need, hey, it's Mike's calendar of events that you send out in your newsletter once a month, and it might say I'm taking Thursday off and things like that, but then you also plan around it, okay? If you know you have a closing, you're not going to take that day off or, relatively close to that, but you can start setting those expectations way ahead of any interaction with somebody. Like I said, the newsletter is a great way to build a rapport with people and let them know that from July 4th through July 9th, you won't see me. But
you're not going to see me July 3rd, or November 3rd to November
exactly.
11th.
Yeah, because you're going to Hawaii.
But I'll call you. We'll do one over the air.
Well, and that's
from island to island.
Yeah, exactly. But you also you're setting the expectation that I have set up another agent that will help you. So all of that goes into the planning and how you're going to execute your business. And the same thing goes for any business. You have to maintain that and don't crack in it. If you tell them that you're off on Friday night because you're spending family time, don't get into the habit of answering your phone. Set that SOB down, put it on focus or whatever we have now, just turn the damn thing off.
Put it on airplane mode.
Yeah, so that you're not tempted because it's going to be there tomorrow. We have proven through COVID and the lockdowns and all that what we once thought couldn't be changed, it can absolutely be changed. Everything's pliable. Mm-hmm. And
your family and the time that you have with them is absolutely not.
Exactly.
You can't get it back.
And I made that decision a long time ago. That was probably the first boundary I set was with myself and understanding that I put my family ahead of everything. My kids, their ball games, all that. Now, it doesn't mean that I haven't gone to a ball game and taken a phone call or, been wherever and done that type of thing. But that is something that exactly right. I was never going to get that time back. And now my kids are older. I mean, Derek's 15 and Brandon's 22. So with Brandon, I've missed all those. I didn't miss all those. I was there to coach, the T-ball games and take him to school or whatever it might be. And the same thing with Derek. But I was not going to let the dollar help me lose that type of opportunity because the way I grew up where the dollar was almighty. And if we made it, we made it. If not, then so be it.
Well, let's talk about legacy real quick. The legacy you're leaving from home. I mean, you're leaving a legacy whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a good one. It can be a bad one. It can be
it
whatever.
Can be 50-50.
Right. So what kind of legacy are you leaving?
And
that's what I want people that are listening to really think. What kind of legacy are we leaving?
What are your kids going to say in 20 years, 50 years?
What if you don't have kids?
Yeah.
What are you going to do in that time? Is it all going to be about you? Is it all going to be about that Aston Martin or Ferrari or, that career growth? Because when you die, you can't take any of that shit with you.
Exactly.
So what legacy are you going to leave?
Or when you're 85 years old and you're, in a home or whatever, all you've got is memories.
Right.
And if your memories are of being at the office and not with your family or missing holidays or letting past traumas from holidays ruin the future holidays.
Or from your childhood.
Exactly. All of those things will come into play. And the legacy is something that I have thought, especially I think since I've hit the 40-year-old, the 40 range.
Well, you're starting to see our mortality now.
Exactly. And I'm not someone that is afraid of death because I'm a realist and I understand that it's going to happen. I've experienced a lot of it, unfortunately, with my very close family members. And so that has given me some more perspective as well. I want to appreciate it. And, I mean, one thing that I've been doing lately is my youngest will go a couple, 2-3 times in a week. He and I will go walk the dogs and just talk, usually 30 to 45 minutes, and he and I just communicate. When Brandon was going to school, he was on a boundary exception. So every day I picked him up from school, or I took him to school and I picked him up, and he would work out with me in the morning. That was a time that we got to bond, and I got to talk, just talk. It didn't have to be anything. And a lot of times the conversations would kind of turn into philosophical or whatever, but just how are you doing? What's going on? Making that connection, those kids will remember that 20 years down the road. In fact, I said it to Derek last night. Well, Dad, we're talking about that. I said, son, I know that sometimes it's not as fun to talk about this stuff as it is, the Blazers or whatever. But in 20 years, I hope that you remember these conversations. And it's not that I expect you to, because I talk to him about these things. I expect you to understand it or appreciate it completely right now. I don't have that expectation, but I want you to at least start thinking about it. And for me, I mean, I would rather have that kind of connection with my kids than $1 million any day. And we see, and I know you and I, because we were in a money-driven business. And I mean, I lost my job and I lost my fucking, I mean, I lost my job and I lost my house because of greed. People wanted money over valuing me. And so they made shit up. They did whatever they had to do to get me fired from my job so that I lost $150,000 and I lost a career because people are greedy. And, as I highlighted in the blog on ManVsMood, I mean, that fucked me up 6 ways from Sunday. Still does to this day. But I'm better equipped, and that's what has led to this project. It's what has led to the opportunity to walk by the river every day, whatever it might be. I've got to look for the wins in it, because if I just sit there and grind on the negative and what those people did, karma is, she going to get you.
Karma's a female dog.
Yes, she is. and I believe in that. And so whether that is, if you want to tell me I'm stupid for blaming karma, that's on you, because I do believe that if you do good things are going to come to you, and if you do bad, a lot of times you bring upon those things to yourself.
And I don't know if you're, religious or what you believe in, higher power, God.
I believe
universe.
I was confirmed in the Lutheran Church, and I did the.
I grew up Presbyterian, but I'm non-denominational now. But everything happens for a reason. Doors shut for a reason.
Yep.
And it's to open up the next one that you have no idea what it's for, but right in that moment, but maybe 5-10 years from now, you look back and you're like, oh shit, that's why it closed. Mm-hmm. That's why I had to go through that pain of that broken relationship, or that losing that job, or going broke or bankrupt. That's why I had to go through it.
Yeah.
Because once you get to that next level, it's almost like, in a way, it's like a leveling up. If you're into video games, you're up into that next level. So your next challenge is this. And
making sure that you're paying attention to that, because it does present the opportunity to be bitter and angry, and I will absolutely hand up. I've been bitter and angry, and I think I said it on our first show. I've never been an angry person, but it did bring, because these were people I thought were my friends, but again, it has provided me an opportunity to grow, and there will be good that has come from it. I mean, there's already good that's coming from it. Well, it was almost immediate.
How you've bounced back from this, your boys see that.
Yeah.
I mean, they saw the struggle. I guarantee you they saw the struggle, the daily struggle of how you were thinking or how you were feeling, even though as much as you try to hide it, they're not stupid.
No, not at all.
But they're going to see that, and then when they have those struggles in their life one day, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's what my dad did.
And you've got to show them that strength. You can't fold up. You can't just be like, oh, fuck it, and try to scream and yell at them or tell them they've done something wrong.
It's hard to not do that, because we're so self-focused a lot of times on our issues that be damned everybody else.
Yeah, and that's something that I've probably, I know I have worked harder on that over time than working on the boundary issue, which I had a big problem with or have, and the sticking up for myself, that type of thing. So it's these things are always got to be front of mind, and when we've got to be reminded of these things occasionally. For me, we talked about it last show, mantras, things like that. So whatever it takes, each of us is going to be different, though, and that's one thing that you need to understand as the listener is Mike and I talk about these things, and we're sharing our experiences, but we're trying to give you a wide range and talk about things, whether it's the big 5 personality traits, but we want things to pique interest in you so that you'll go find that journey on your own. We hope that we can be part of it. We want you to listen and be engaged,
part of it.
For sure, but your journey is not going to be the same as ours because your experience is not the same as ours. So, and like you've always, you've told me and reminded me that comparison is the thief of joy. And I know I have done that terribly because I have one hand and everything is, I should be, in my mind, able to do it at least as good as you and hopefully better. And that has led me down paths where when I am not able to do that, that can manifest in a negative way. So, well, with that, I think, as I said at the top of the show, this is going to be one of many on business and mental health because these things go hand in hand. And it's important for us to keep that in mind, that when we go to work every day, that the office dynamics can be like family dynamics, because oftentimes you may spend more waking hours with those people than you do with your actual family. Because by the time you get up, you got an hour in the morning and maybe 4 hours at night. That's it. Well, you've spent 8 hours in the office or on the job or whatever it might be with them. So, got to remember that those types of personal relationships and how you reflect on them and engage them will impact your mental health at home. And maybe it gives you an opportunity to create a new relationship that, if your ego is too big or whatever it might have been, held you back from in the past. So with that, I was going to bring in a new segment this show based on some top tweets that I had seen, but we're already running over an hour, and I want to try to keep these pretty tight. You have any final words to wrap us up?
Final word, I was going to mention this earlier. It was a post that was done by someone that I really look up to, kind of a life mentor. Mm-hmm. So it's a little story. If you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
A professor gave a balloon to every student who had to inflate it, write their name on it, and throw it down a hallway. The professor then mixed all the balloons up and told the students they have 5 minutes to find their own balloon. Despite the hectic search, no one found their balloon. At that point, the professor told the students to take the first balloon that they found and hand it to the person whose name was with the name written on it. Within 5 minutes, everybody had their balloon. The professor said to the students, "These balloons are like happiness. We will never find it if everyone is looking for their own, but if we care about other people's happiness, we'll find ours too."
I like that. I like those types of things, but that's,
if that's why we're doing what we're doing with this show, is we're trying to link arms with you guys to come along with you and you come along with us so that we can do this together. Because doing it alone and doing it separate or solo, you're not going to get very far.
You're not going to get very far, and I can attest to that because I have tried to, like I have so many other things with my mentality of I'll just get through it, dealing with it on my own, and maybe it comes with age and maturity, but you finally get to that point where you realize I can't. And it's all right to say I can't, and help is a good thing. And talking about whether you're depressed or just mental health in general, just because we talk about mental health, a lot of it is preventive. Mm-hmm. We don't want you to get depressed because of X, Y, Z. So let's have a talk about it right now. What are these things that are frustrating you so that it doesn't lead you down a path where you're perpetually unhappy? And so we'll continue that. And as I wrap the show up, please go and drop some questions for us, some topics that you would like us to broach, because that's what we're here for. We want to be that conduit to happiness, and happiness is not eternal, but it's something that we're striving for, and we want to help you get there, like we're helping each other get there. So again, Facebook, ManVsMood, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. we're on there. We've got posts up. I'm trying to put a post up every day, whether it's on Instagram and Facebook. Interact with us. There's a group, all of that kind of stuff. So, and we're going to go ahead and, you want to tease next week?
Oh, next week, we're going to have a buddy of mine that I used to work with come on. His name's Gary. Gary is going to talk about his experiences with his mental health as an African-American black male.
That is going to be great
in today's society. I can't wait to hear what he says.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And was there one other thing that you had?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, along with, some topics and stuff that you said to post on our social media, throw in there too also what you're grateful for.
Yeah.
I would love to see a daily what am I grateful for, even if it's just to wake up. But anyways.
No, what I'll do is I'll start putting up, because what I like to do is take photos. I took a photo of the gourds the other morning, and I'll just start putting that up. What are we grateful for? Try to start a conversation with that. So, and we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe and rate and review the podcast and like us, share us, all that, because we're trying to spread our word here and get more guys and gals, because we understand the value of having the women listen to us.
And we're going to have a female speaker coming up in a little while.
Yep. Next month we will. And if there are people that you would maybe like us to try to get on the show, I have the capability to do anything to get somebody on. They can be in Zimbabwe and I can get them on. So Or Hawaii. So again, hit us up. We're here for you. And anything else?
No.
With that,
see you next time.
we go.